So strap up in a price. We I want to go on campus. Young people are going hard from campus. Come on, tell me what one. Campus connection, yeah, that's a one. Now, walk on from campus. How we are carrying hard from campus. Come on, tell me what one. Campus connection, yeah, that's a one. Hey, so make us again listen, let me tell you this. Students, I will make we do this. Oh yes, we create this space just for you. Make we talk about you, make we talk about school, government, and politics, sports, academics, anything will concern you. I don't know when love pass through. It's all about the gospel. So tell you what one from campus. Youths are going on from campus. Come on, tell me what one. Campus connection, and that's a one now. Welcome to Campus Connection. Today, it is Tuesday, September 20, 2022. I am Daniel Blake. Thank you so much for joining me. As you know, Campus Connection is all about the schoolers, university, high school, even at the primary school level. And if you're a parent or a guardian, or you just have an interest in our youth's education, is the show for you. So thank you so much for joining us. We are live on YouTube and Facebook. We are also live on the radio 101.1 all the way to 101.9, and you can listen on the app and also on love101.org in your internet browser. So as you know, this is not usually where I'm supposed to be. But I would like to apologize for the absence of Jonathan and Anesta. But next week they'll be back. I know so them just come back last week, but they'll be back. All right. So today is going to be such a great show because we are going to focus both on different aspects of the education, school life. So for those who may not know, September is National Sickle Cell Awareness Month. So just in a short while, you will hear more about that. And then, the discussions we've been having across the summer with the whole teachers resigning, going overseas, changing jobs. It's really crazy right now. So we're going to try and touch on all of those, and we just have an hour, or you should say a little less than an hour, but we hope to get through all of that. So the Education and News Bulletin will be brought to us by Shamar Samuels, first-year student at the University of Technology, pursuing a major in computer information system. That happens in just a short while. At 5:45, we have the creative block with Daniellia White. So as I mentioned, it is National Sickle Cell Awareness Month, and we are highlighting a creative that has managed to survive the many highs and lows of living with the sickle cell disease. Daniellia is a published author and entertainment executive, podcaster, and the owner of 2 companies. And she's also a proud past student of Arden, UTech, and UWI. So we'll talk to her very shortly at 5:45. Then at 6 p.m., we will talk about Jamaican teachers and the classroom part 2. We spoke a little bit about it last week, but we didn't get to really flesh it out. So we'll be having a part 2 talking about the factors contributing to, teachers leaving one school, going to the other, or just leaving and going overseas, or just changing jobs. So we'll be joined by President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Miss Lasonia Harrison, and we'll also be joined by Linvern Wright, who is the president of the Jamaica Association of Principal of Secondary Schools. He's also principal at the William Knibb High School. And then at 6:20 p.m., we want to hear from you. So it's our social media talk back question. So do you think the government is doing enough to boost our education system? Again, do you think the government is doing enough to boost our education system? So we look forward to your feedback. You can WhatsApp us at 876-997-3125. That's 876-997 3125. Give us your thoughts there, some of your comments, your voice notes, what you think the government, do you think the government is doing enough to boost our education system? So all of that coming up. And before we get into the education news bulletin, we'd like to extend condolences to the Petersfield High School family over there in Westmoreland. Their language teacher, Charmaine James, passed suddenly just a day after her 50th birthday. A very, very difficult time for them. And, you know, it's always hard when people pass, especially our educators who have given so much to the system. So condolences to the Petersfield High School family and all the loved ones of Charmaine James. All right, so it's now time for the education and news bulletin, and it will be brought to us today by Shamar Samuels, first-year student at the University of Technology, pursuing a major in computer information system.
And welcome to Education News for Tuesday, September 20, 2022, here inside of Campus Connection. I am Shamar Samuels. Education and Youth Minister Favor Williams is calling for partnership between parents and schools in maintaining discipline in schools, reiterating the ministry's position that no child should be barred from attending school. She said children should be encouraged to comply with the school rules as they help to promote discipline. We have to stand up on the side of discipline in our schools. We have to speak to our parents to encourage them to support their children in obeying the school rules, Williams said. The minister, who was addressing a Rotary Club of Kingston meeting on Thursday, September 15 at the Pegasus Hotel, urged collaboration between school administrators and parents to find creative ways to deal with students who contravene school rules. She is also encouraging parents to utilize the Parent Teachers Association (PTA) to raise concern to facilitate an orderly grievance process. Two lawyers are of the view that more feasible policies for school dress codes and grooming would eliminate the threat of any potential legal issues aimed at institutions of learning. The perspectives of attorneys of law Gavin Goff and Isaac Buchanan follow the school dress code issue, which was reignited at the Godfrey Stewart High School in Westmoreland, Western Jamaica last week. According to Goff, there should be alternative means of enforcing dress codes in schools without putting children at risk and causing them to miss out on their classes. Further, he suggested that more decisions should be made in line with the Education Act. A St. Catherine-based principal has been forced to put in place tighter security measures to clamp down on the growing scale of gummy shots that are in high demand among students. Gummy shots, which are also called gummy bears infused with alcohol, are among the newest homemade drug products that have found their way into the institution. Vending is strictly prohibited, but some of the students, especially the boys, still manage to bring these beers into the schools. The first time I learned about the mix was in 2018. I initially thought children were just enjoying the sweets, but a student brought it to my attention that they weren't just sweets but drugs. I sent the student to purchase one of the beers while I keenly watched through a window. The distributor made the deal like a well seasoned professional. I tasted one of the beers, and it was so laced with rum that it was bitter. The seller was dealt with accordingly, but in reality, it doesn't stop the sales, as there were other students peddling it. As soon as me deal with one, me find out about the next seller. It wasn't just the boys who were selling either, he said. Fast forward to 2022, and the educator says while they have not entirely got rid of the bad weeds with intervention and disciplinary measures, they have managed to make progress. And on to regional scenes. The St. Lucia Teachers Union (SLTU) says it is disturbed at the situation regarding the student who have been barred from attending classes at St. Mary's College, SMC, because of his hairstyle, adding, this case has serious implications for the entire education system. Schools are institutions that instill values and discipline in students to help them to become law abiding citizens. Given the nature of the school, we all understand the importance of rules and regulations and the reasons why they should be followed, the SLTU said in the statement. Further, the SLTU is concerned about the impact that this matter will have on school discipline. If a student is allowed to break one rule, then inevitably the authority of all other rules would be compromised, it added. The St. Lucia government has already said it remains committed to reviewing the present positions regarding issues of grooming in schools on the island after the 13-year-old son of a lawyer who was prevented from attending classes on the first day of the new school term. It's now time for campus bulletin. Passion and Purity, in association with the Manchester High School, presents High School Conference and CTIA Forum on Saturday, October 1, 2022 from 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Under the theme Passion, Purity, and Purpose. There will also be a gospel concert featuring Perpetual Sounds of Praise, Ryan Davis, Marsha Jarrett, DJ Zeal, and more. Admission is free. For information, visit at Passion and Purity JA on social media. And that's all the news we have for you today inside of Education News and Bulletin. I am Shamar Samuels.
Thank you, Shamar. That was our education and news bulletin brought to us by Shamar Samuels, first year student at UTech pursuing a major in computer information systems. Some interesting news points there. The Rummy Bears is an interesting one, simply because I went to Woolmer's and I know about things like Rummy Bears, the weed brownies. Um, I think even our classmate had gotten sick because they thought it was just a regular brownie. And you know, our high school students are quite creative. So our teachers have to be on lookout, and not just the teachers, but also the students. Sometimes you might be a little fearful, because I'm being an informer, and no man look on you and say, yo, that, and them go all around a corner and then think that. But everybody has to be involved to ensure that we protect our students, because if the wrong person gonna end up take the rummy bears or the wheat brownie or whatever it is, it could be really disastrous. So let's protect our students at all costs. All right, so we are approaching 5:45 p.m. Remember our question for today for our social media feedback. Do you think the government is doing enough to boost our education system? Remember, our WhatsApp number is 876-997-3125. That's 876-997-3125. We'll ensure to get those comments and read those comments shortly after 6:20. So, have you ever seen content or art and think, I could do that? And even if you are skilled, do you have the vision and creativity? There are people out there who have managed to do so and do it successfully. They had the idea and they executed it. Possessing the skills to construct or fabricate something that has worth and making a living doing so. It's time for the creative block, and our creative today is Daniellia White. She's a published author, an entertainment executive, podcaster, and the owner of two companies. She had do one bag of things. She's also a proud past student of Arden High, UTech, and UE. Welcome to the creative block, Daniellia.
Oh, I'm Hello, thanks for having me.
Not a problem, not a problem. Firstly, Daniela, we went through that long intro because you're just apparently multi-talented, right? How you
Yes.
manage to balance all of those things?
Um, Definitely scheduling. I can tell you that I'm very big on scheduling, very big on time management. So yeah, that's basically how I manage to do everything.
I can barely eat and watch TV, so the fact that you can do all of that is amazing. So, um, let's talk about the issue at hand, sickle cell disease, which you have had for the majority of your life. For those
My
who may
entire
not,
life, it's genetic, it's
your
hereditary.
entire life, same thing. So, just for the listeners and the viewers out there, sickle cell, in short, it's a group of inherited red blood cell disorders. So, as you know, or regular red blood cells would have hemoglobin, which carries oxygen, but the small blood vessels that people sickle cell have um, don't have it, and it's
I can butt in because you kind of not
sure,
fitting it accurately.
sure, you do it.
A regular blood cell is round, which is almost like donut shape without the hole taken out,
Got you.
or without the middle taken out. Sickle cell patients or carriers, warriors, do not have a round red blood cell. We have what you call a quarter moon, a crescent, a banana shaped red blood cells. And that's due to the low hemoglobin. And therefore, we don't have the same level of oxygen, and everything that the blood passes through is affected in a nutshell. And it's
Ah,
genetic. So we have it from birth, it's not catching, anything like that.
yes, and if memory serves me right, your parents would need to have like a sickle cell trait. They don't necessarily need to have sickle cell.
Correct. So it takes two parents, one having the trait, each having the trait, or in some rare cases, I can have it full blown and there's a percentage that my child gets it. Percentage. It's like probability.
Got you. So, as you mentioned, you've lived with this all your life. Have you had any major complications or, I guess, near death experiences dealing with sickle cell?
Um, that's a trick question for everybody with sickle cell because it's kind of inevitable. Um, I'm one of the blessed ones. I like to use the word blessed. So I've only had one major complication, which is splenic sequestration, which basically mean my red blood cells got caught in my spleen and my spleen kept swelling. So my spleen was
Oh,
the size of a mini fetus, 14 point something centimeters, and I had to remove it. So a lot of people, if you see me on social media, you'll see me showing off a scar in my stomach. That's really what it was. That's what caused the scar. So that's been the only major complication I've had in terms of near death experiences. Which one you want me to tell you about? Because
I
it
mean,
comes with the
anyone.
territory.
Uh, anyone, because I guess people don't really get these stories and aren't very familiar with it. So maybe just one, or if you feel the need to share all of them, go right
I
ahead.
can't share all of them. Trust me, we don't have enough
Wow.
time. But the most recent one, I went to work. So I'm an entertainment manager, manage an artist currently, one artist. And we went to work, meet and greet like normal. It was a Sunday, I remember that much. But work was in the hills. No, I have
Oh wow.
traveled, I have been to Gordon Town, I've been to Irish Town. I've never experienced anything like this. Anyway, I was up there and I remember I was fine. I wasn't cold. I wasn't it literally 0 to 100 when we were exiting the restaurant. And I don't know if you know where Cafe Blue is in Irish Town. So we
Oh
parked
yes, I do.
Cafe
Yes.
Blue and went up to Eats Cafe. Exiting Eats Cafe now, I started feeling nauseous. I think that was the first sign. But I was also cognizant of the fact that I was on my menstrual cycle. So I'm thinking, maybe you're nauseous because of that. Anyway, went to the bathroom. I was fine. By the time I got back to the car, disaster. I literally did not make it past Cafe Blue. I
Wow.
had to leave my car because there was nobody else with us that could drive my car down. So I left my car. I met a couple strangers because the owner of Cafe Blue came out, who happened to have a relative that has sickle cell. So she understood the danger of me being sick and stuck on top of a hill far from a hospital. And she just called that cousin, another cousin, and say, yo, carry her to Andrews now. Yeah, police literally drove us down. It was a whole excitement because he just couldn't stop. I was literally passing out. So yeah, and that happened in 2021. So that was the recent one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Glad that you're still here, by the way. But
Thank you.
it's very difficult because I remember having a classmate in prep school who had sickle cell, and he was often missing from school, or he would come to school late because he was always going to the doctor or the hospital or so forth. So what was it like going through school, living with sickle cell? Because I'm sure you had an active lifestyle as well.
Yeah, funny enough, I'm very grateful because the parents I had, if I sneeze a certain kind of way, I was at the doctor. Um, that's the kind of parents I had. I had a very Google fanatic mom, I call her, because if the doctor said I had a splenic issue, she would be on Google researching it. She knew every medication by name. She knew how many dosage I was supposed to get. So it's almost like knowing exactly what sickle cell is and how to take care of somebody with sickle cell. And so my childhood, I wasn't as sick as I should have been, as in as much as other persons are, which I'm grateful for. But there were times when I was at school and daddy had to come pick me up because 0 to 100. There were also times when I'd be at school okay, and then the next thing I know, I'm not okay, and I can't tell anybody why I'm not okay. I couldn't explain it. But I was very active. I danced for majority of my childhood.
Wow.
I stopped dancing because my hip, so the cartilage in our hips wear and tear
Mm-hmm.
with strenuous activities. A lot of sickle cell persons either have to get hip replacement when those cartilages start to wear. In order to protect me from having an extreme wear and tear, I was advised not to dance anymore. So I stopped dancing before university. So I think the last time I danced was in high school. And I've been singing ever since. Yeah. So I've been pretty active. Been pretty active.
That Yeah, that's extremely great to hear because I that same classmate couldn't really involve himself in PE or sports because his joints and his body itself was just really frail. So the moment he started to run, he would feel weak. So it was great to know that you are, as you mentioned, one of the blessed ones. You are now in the entertainment industry, as you mentioned, but dealing with the disease, especially having those experiences, um, do you get discouraged? Does it block your mind creatively, and how do you kind of get out of that and conquer everything that's potentially bothering you?
I mean, if I'm being honest, we're all humans. So there are times when we have low seasons and there are high seasons in our lives. But I think what a lot of people don't understand is the average person or the average female operates on a 12 to 15 hemoglobin level, and men operate on a greater hemoglobin, slightly higher. On an average, I operate anywhere between 8 and 10. So I'm already at a disadvantage, and that's my regular hemoglobin level, 8 to 10. which means I'm lethargic a lot.
Mm.
I get tired easily. Um, there are times when I can't concentrate because I literally don't have the brain power to concentrate. And so it's a lot of wear and tear of um, human capacity. I'm limited, and I know because I'm limited, I put measures in place. In terms of how do I get out of that funk, the reality is I can't do nothing about my physical man. And so when it's time to rest, I know it is important to rest. Do I often do it? I don't because I have a lot going on. So there are times when I have to pick and choose when to rest, and sometimes I push myself a little bit hard, but I know my limitations. And so if today I don't feel like doing it, I don't try to push my body to do it because I'm physically not capable of doing it.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time, and I wish that we had more because we could talk about this for a very long time. But tell us about some of your companies, the book, The Depth of My Scars. I know that you have a podcast on the Hub, which have premiered some episodes this month. Just for the listeners and viewers, tell us about all those things that keeps you from resting when you should.
Okay, so I started out publishing. I think what came first was entertainment. So let me start with that. I started the company Daniellia White Organization based on the fact that I've been performing for majority of my life, but I now enjoy the management aspect of it. So that's Daniellia White Organization. Um, Sometime in 2019, I published a book, The Depths of My Scars. That book is autobiographical. It talks about my journey with sickle cell, my journey being a sexual abuse victim, my journey being a pastor's kid. I'm still a pastor's kid. And so it gets tough sometimes. And I spoke about that in my book. And from that, I launched the publishing house, which is DW Org Books and Publications. The podcast Conversation in Motion started based on the book. So I was supposed to do a book tour, but remember COVID did keep.
Hmm.
So we decided to do the book tour as a podcast, and that's how that was launched. But the podcast you're referring to is Warriors Unite, The Untold Stories, which is the sickle cell podcast. And that came out of the fact that since 2019, I've been a well known advocate for the disease and for warriors in the disease because I feel like we don't talk about it enough and it's so common. Everybody in your circle at least has the trait or something. And so it was just to spread awareness, to reach out to people within the community, as well as to advocate for warriors.
Speaking of the Warriors, in about a minute and a half, what advice would you give to those battling with the disease, loved ones who are witnessing, their loved ones battling with the disease? What advice would you give to them?
Um, First of all, educate yourself. Ask questions if you don't know the answers. It's okay not to know. We're constantly evolving, research is constantly evolving, and so just keep learning. That's one thing I'd say to persons who are not carriers of the disease. For persons who are carriers of the disease, you are warriors. You get up every day and you are fighting to live. And I don't think we give credence to people who are actually battling a disease that it's a chronic illness that you have no control over. You never ask for it, you never wake up normal, and then one day you just get it. It's very different from every other disease that exists, like cancer, because you were born with it. And so your life is filled with you fighting, and that's great in itself. So give yourself some credit, be gentle with yourself. Um, yeah, I think that's the greatest thing, being gentle with yourself and knowing your limitations and being free to speak within your limitations. If you can't do it, you just can't do it.
Yeah, great advice. Daniela, give quick big ups in less than 30 seconds. Anybody you
Big
want
ups
to
to
big up?
all. I'd like to big up to my team. Thank you so much, guys. You are, when I tell you support, them keep me going. You ask me how I do everything. I have an amazing team. To all my other members of the support system, my parents, my family, besties, yeah, yeah. Big up to Uno. Love Uno. Bad, bad.
Daniela, thank you so much for just being vulnerable with us, educating us, giving us some insight on your life. Keep fighting because, as you mentioned, you are a warrior, and we know that you will continue to do great things. So, all the best, and hopefully, we'll talk again very soon.
No problem. Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Not a problem, anytime. All right, Daniela White there, published author, entertainment executive, podcaster. Um, she have too much titles and I forgot to the break, but Daniela is a fantastic young woman. Ensure to follow her on social media. So we'll go into a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about Jamaican teachers and the classroom part 2, and we'll be speaking with Miss Lasagna Harrison and Mr. Linvern Wright. So stay with us.
We are carry large from campus. Come on, tell me what one. Campus connection, get another one. Hey, so make us on then listen, let me tell you this. Students, I wanna make we do this. Oh yes, we create this space just for you. Make we talk.
I'm Tammy.
I'm Wayne.
And we are the Mitchells. Our life is a busy vibe.
We have our vlogging and music.
Entertainment for the kids.
Them love the online gaming, you see.
And streaming enough shows.
So whether we are at home or on the road,
Flow Yard and Road is made for our vibe.
Power your everywhere vibe with Yard and Road and get up to 150 megabits per second fiber fast internet at home and fully loaded mobile with unlimited social and YouTube data. Anywhere talking text plus gigs and gigs of any use data. All for a special offer of $4,999 plus GCT. Yard and Road is for the way you live. Flow, Jamaica's network. Visit discoverflow.co. Conditions apply.
Already 20 years the Cameron there? Hace 20 años en Jamaica? Thank you, our valued customers and industry partners. You made it possible.
Come celebrate this significant milestone with us at any of our 3 properties: Royal Decameron Club Caribbean, Montego Beach, and Cornwall Beach.
Call us today at 876-973-5600 or visit us at www.decameron.com. Let's celebrate the next 20 years together at Decameron's all-inclusive hotels and resorts.
You've been faithful.
Wycliffe Caribbean will be hosting its 10th annual Church Leaders Breakfast under the theme Passing the Baton Towards the Finish Line, Celebrating the Faithful. This Saturday, September 24, beginning at 8 a.m. at the Venetian Terra Nova Hotel, 17 Waterloo Road, Kingston 10. Listen as Love 101 FM will share highlights. Sponsored by Love 101 FM. That's the 10th annual Church Leaders Breakfast of Wycliffe Caribbean. The highlights will be this Saturday on Love 101 FM, the family station.
When you've been around for 100 years, you've seen a lot. And at Grace, we've seen you enjoying meals while watching a movie, sometimes while watching a game, or being extra picky while watching your weight. We've been there serving up meals for the big moments and helping you take care of the little ones when that lunch bell rings. And with 100 years of great taste that has moved generations, you can be sure we'll be here for 100 more. Grace, celebrating 100 years of taste that moves you. Grace, celebrating 100 years of taste that moves you.
The time by Grace Foods is...
All right, welcome back to Campus Connection right here on Love 101. It is 6:04. Remember, we want you to leave your comments, give us your feedback, and at around 6:20, 6:25, we will talk about it. So do you think the government is doing enough to boost our education system? That is, do you think the government is doing enough to boost our education system? WhatsApp us at 876-997-3125. That's 876-997-3125. So as you know, a lot of the conversations heading into the school year was around our teachers. Many of our teachers migrating, going to different countries to get a better life for them due to the lack of, proper resources here and, remuneration and everything. And it was a very tough time for even those who tried to and didn't get through and so forth. So last week, we spoke about Jamaican teachers and the classroom, but this week we are doing a part 2. So we'll be talking about the factors contributing to teachers leaving from one school or from one school to another, or just factors of them leaving Jamaica completely to go to overseas schools. Last week, we were joined by President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Miss Lasonia Harrison. She joins us again, and we are also expected to be joined by Mr. Linvern Wright, President at the Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools. He's also the principal at William Knabe High School, and I also believe he is the chairman of the Issa Da Costa Cup committee. Right now, I am seeing Miss Lasonia Harrison. Miss Harrison, thank you so much for joining me.
You are most welcome, Mr. Blake. Good evening to you and your listeners across the island, and to, in particular, my teachers across the length and breadth of this wonderful nation.
Great. So last week you spoke a lot about your role and what has been happening. Just to give a sort of a quick recap for those who may not have heard, what has been some major findings for you since becoming president of the JTA?
In terms of just the system, or
in just regards to the teachers not being happy with the money situation, them migrating, the preparedness of the schools so far, just that in general.
That's a perennial problem, us not being I wouldn't say satisfied, not being happy with how it is, the quality of our compensation package. That is certainly a great push factor, as well as a pull factor to those of my colleagues who choose to explore the options that are available to them overseas, be it North America, Europe, Middle East, as far as the Middle East, Asia. And so they're going, even in territories that you would have thought that there would have been some apprehension to tread those waters. But we have persons in countries that, in days gone by, you would think persons wouldn't dream of leaving Jamaica to go and to teach, but they're taking up those opportunities. And for several of them, they're reporting, good results. And so they're encouraging others even to come. But we continue to look at our situation here in Jamaica. And one of my main arguments that I want is for us to really change the narrative that we have. Stop comparing apples and oranges. Jamaica needs to look at, after 60 years, look at our education system, look at the philosophy that drives it, and then truly determines if what we spend on education is adequate, as being purported by the Patterson report and the expenditure on the review on the expenditure of funds re-education done by UNICEF, World Bank. So we need to look at, and when I would go around, when I'm in consultation with my colleagues, it can't be that you're adequate and teachers are complaining, schools are complaining. I would have compiled a list not too long ago to list how many schools. Still, I just visited one today, two today, that have inadequate number of desks and chairs, not only for the students, but for teachers. There is not a desk or a chair. Now you tell me which private sector place you work or wherever it is, and it is you go to work and you don't even have a desk or a chair. So there are teachers who are, when they enter the classroom, they're standing there, they do not have a place to put their own little thing. They have to be catching, sharing a desk with a student thing. So that is the reality in some of our classrooms. Our colleagues still have complaints. Some have not yet received textbooks. The Ministry of Education says that the delivery schedule goes up to October 5. So we continue to await. For those who have received, they continue to share too that the numbers they receive are inadequate. And so even as the government continue to tell the nation that they spend some $2 billion are allocated towards purchasing of text, when it is we are to do that multiplier effect, when we are to do the division, we can determine if that $2 billion is even adequate. If it's 1 billion to high school, 1 billion to primary school, just if we do the simple mathematics for the high school, 1 billion divided by 171 high schools equal to $5.8 million. 5.8 million divided by just one cohort of a typical average high school of 200 students in each grade level is that 5.8 divided by that 200 is $29,000 per child. How many texts? Parents can determine how many textbooks can $29,000. They've been to the bookstore. So is it really what we're providing really adequate? And there has been shortage in the high school systems for some time now. And please note that that money, 1 billion, is not only for purchasing of physical text, but purchasing of ebooks and the licensing, the software that comes along with same. So we have those continued challenges. There are teachers who have been employed, would have met for a few today, who would have been employed in what we call a 1 to 25 ratio, and they're still to be on the establishment. So those things sort of demotivate. So when you can't get the kind of resources that you need, when you can't get, your post is not established, those are some of the things that, really frustrates the teacher. When the teacher would have sent in his or her qualification and you have to wait 2-3 months in order for you to start getting your pay, those are some little things that really frustrates the teacher. And we're hoping that our employers will be working assiduously to reduce, the bureaucracies and the lagging behind where that is concerned, and to have an honest conversation. Do not let the public feel as if education is well resourced, and we know on the ground that that is otherwise so.
You mentioned about the government almost saying that they fully support the education with a lot of money, as you mentioned. But as I've heard from you and I've heard from other principals and teachers, there seems to be a disconnect. Does the Minister of Education, the permanent secretary, don't they have conversations with yourself or with principals or teachers generally? Because it just seems like a huge divide. Why is there not a relationship where everybody is building, rather than them saying this and the teachers saying otherwise, that and that?
Well, I couldn't speak on behalf of the Ministry of Education. What I do know is that they do share with John Public large sums, and to the ordinary Jamaican, because a Jamaican who would have read in the article in the Gleaner to say that $2 billion have been set aside for textbook funding, it sounds like a lot of money. But when you think about almost 800 primary schools and 171 high schools to be resourced out of that money, trust me, when you drill it down, it's not a lot of money. When you look at the different sums, the subvention and the different monies that are sent to the schools to support and to resource schools, when you drill it down, it really is not adding up. $2,500 per child at the primary school level, equating to $13 per day. $17,000, or if they're on path, $19,000 per child at the secondary. Mushrooming to $89 or $100 per day for each child is certainly not adequate. $120 for path. I don't know if you would have seen the article in the Observer where the path persons are saying that I know it was in the Gleaner, the path persons are saying it's just not cutting, so they're ready to pack up their bags and to go, because it's $120 they receive for a lower school child, grades 1 to 3, and $150 per child 4 to 6, and they're saying the box alone costs $40, and the chicken is $300 per pound. So they're saying it is just not working out, and the government needs to look at it. So the conversation is, let us have a real sit down, look at what we need. We have come to the place where, as a nation, we need to determine. Currently, we expend 20% of the non-debt expenditure to education, or 6% of at GDP. We need to really look at what is the cost of producing that educated profile of that Jamaican in the 2030 vision. What really cost for each child to be educated? And we look at what we currently have, and then we decide that is $10 it needs. And right now we only have $5. And we're going to say, as a nation, private sector, can you give us $2? Diaspora, can you give us $2? And we're committed to putting $1 each year until we get there. But a real conversation needs to be had, and we need to stop playing politicking with education, because we need to craft a plan. We need to decide that this is the plan we're going with, regardless of which P is in power, and we will turn neither to the left nor to the right from it. And in that plan must be proper compensation for our teachers. Now a teacher going home with $1.3 million at the lowest end of the trained graduate scale, and $1.6 million at the highest end. Now tell me real it is. What it is that you that's $139,000 you take home, and that it's not taxed yet. You hear? So what it is that we're really paying our teachers, and we're expecting them to get up very motivated every day, and in addition to the challenges that they face in terms of parents not preparing their children the best in terms of behavior and all of that, and so they have to treat with the lack of resources, the challenges that our children bring to the classroom space. It can be frustrating. And to all my colleagues who have decided to stay, I continue to salute you, because what we do is invaluable, and somebody has to stay, and we must continue with the thrust of nation building, as we've done over the years with the little that we do get, and personally and within our school community to afford. Mr. Wright perhaps have access to more money than some schools do, given the support he has otherwise. But it is the truth is, we have to look at how we resource those schools that do not have the strong alumni that some schools are afforded that privilege, and primary schools really do not have that kind of support outside of what the government gives. We won't even tread down to early childhood, because that is just another state that we really need to look at. We continue to be reactive as a people instead, and then it is we build solidly on same.
Yeah. Joined by Mr. Linvern Wright, who is the president of the Jamaica Association of Principal of Secondary Schools. Mr. Wright, thank you so much for joining us. We've gone through a lot so far, but in your conversation with the principals, your own teachers at William Knibb, what do you think that the government needs to be doing better to ensure that our teachers are much more satisfied than they are now?
I hope you're hearing me. You're hearing me well?
Yes, I am.
Right. I think one of the things people just want support. Pay is one of the things, as Lasagna has said, but I think that there is a need for support for what it is we do in schools. And you get the sense that teachers understand, for example, that children don't come to school with the kind of habits and attitudes necessary to learn. And in many instances, many of the things that we try to do, given the lack of the kind of social support that we have for students to really do their work, you're hearing that you're not dealing with the education and that sort of thing. And I always tell people that for me, for example, and it might look like we're writing something, but for me, things like dress and hairstyle, I don't think those things are important to many principals, you know. But what we really sometimes use those things to do is to underscore the principle of compliance that is necessary for things like learning. And so sometimes the socks is not as important as people would think in terms of the grand scheme of things. But when you insist on some little things, it engenders in the minds of the kids that this school is not going to joke about compliance when it comes on to assignments going to come on. So it's as if on small things they know you are serious. Then on the bigger things they just don't bother with that. And it's the same principle in homes. And I think when what is happening is that I think that we're playing for style rather than substance in how we're dealing with things. Because I think it might appear that schools are dealing with trivialities, but it's usually an underlying principle that schools are actually trying to engender when we do some of the things that we do. And I think society needs to recognize that. So support is one. When you look at how schools are working now with many students, one equalizing factor in education has always been the library and access to library facilities. At every level of our education system, maybe except for the tertiary, libraries are inadequate. And children who come without resources in terms of the internet resources, in terms of computers, schools have to struggle to raise funds to do these kinds of things. If it is that we want to really give value to the educational process and the access and opportunities that students are going to have, you want to ensure that every single child will have access to books, access to online libraries, because there are some children who can afford it and they do well. What teachers want is support. So, for example, you have a sixth form program now that's pushing in schools. Many sixth form programs in the high schools in the traditional sense don't have proper libraries. And now we're putting more people onto it without actually putting in the infrastructure. You look at the sixth form program that government is pushing in now about pathways 1, pathways 2, and pathway 3. Teachers are seeing the hypocrisy of this system because you don't resources, but you shove children in it and label it sixth form program because there's prestige to sixth form. But the kind of resources that you need in it to ensure that it works. So, for example, a child coming in who has been to high school for 5 years, who cannot read, who is struggling, you decide that 2 more years of school is going to help that child, and you want somebody to get a skill who maybe cannot read. So what we don't do is that, for example, Lasagna maybe did talk about the primary system, but we feel, for example, at the secondary level, and this is the last point I'll make in relation to it, that if it is that we invest properly in early childhood education and primary education, many of the issues that we are trying to address at the back end now in the secondary system and maybe tertiary are things that we won't have to do. And so resourcing is one, but listening to us is another, because we are seeing that background knowledge and lack of foundation is causing many of the problems, and we want government to deal with that. It will cost a lot of money, but you cannot continue to give $2,500 per child outside of teacher salary to a primary school kid, to educate them for a year, which is about $250 per month, right? You cannot continue to do that and you expect any better than we're getting now in terms of the level of literacy that we have.
Yeah, at this rate, we might need a part 3 because we have less than 2 minutes. Mr. Wright, seeing as though you didn't get as much as you wanted to get off in probably a minute or less, this is also for you, Miss Harrison. Knowing the position we are in right now, what are your realistic expectations up until at least the Christmas term?
Well, the realistic expectations, schools will continue to try, but I think we'll struggle because the fact is that many of the children are behind in terms of the foundation knowledge that they should have had. I mean, COVID has done that. And we know prior to COVID, we are not fooling ourselves. There were issues. So many of those issues are with us and multiplied now. The fact is that people are going to try, and I think with the greatest of hope, but for the term, I think people are going to do their best. People are trying to put in systems now, to work. I feel that usually our ministry just continue to talk, not put in the resources, and then we may be back at square one or maybe a little below square one if it is that we don't know what we're doing.
Miss Harrison, any optimism from you?
I concur that teachers will continue to be as resilient as we've always been. The learning gaps were existed prior to COVID. They were worsened by COVID-19, but as educators committed to what we do, we will continue to find ways and strategies as to how to best. I do underscore the point of us needing support, and what it is. So, I really would it's probably one of the few times we saw the minister coming out to support, and so what would have taken place. So I do congratulate her on that, having recognized that we don't set out to be, malicious people or people who are unsympathetic to the, even the financial situation and cause of our parents. But there must be standards. This society will continue to reel from the lack of discipline. If it is in our schools, we do not seek to stem same. And so the administrators and the teachers on the ground, we continue to seek the support of the parents and those who employ us as we carry out the business of education. And as he would have said, I've been calling for the professional courtesy. There ought to be no policy that is implemented at any level where it is that you do not consult in a meaningful way. I don't mean you come and tell us something and then ask, is there any question? That's not consultation. So you really need to consult with the practitioners on the ground to hear, put the plan to us, and we say, no, minister, try that. That's not going to work, minister, because we know what it looks like on the ground based on what we have. So let us see how we can fix it and put something out there. But we cannot continue with the showboating of saying this to John public, and then we on the ground, we know differently. And so the task is mine to continue to say what it is that how it really is on the ground for those of us who are on the front page.
And we really hope things get better for all of you involved. Miss Harrison, Mr. Wright, thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully when we speak again around the Christmas term, that things might look a little better.
Thank you.
We continue to pray and trust God. Yes, because we certainly need him in these times.
Yes, that's all we can do right now. Thank you so much.
Take care, Lasagna. Good.
Bless you, Mr. Wright.
All right, so that was the JTA president, Miss Lasagna Harrison, and Mr. Linvern Wright, president of the Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools, principal at William Knibb, and the chairman of the ISA Da Costa Cup Committee. Always have to push sports there. We are fast running out of time. I know that I asked you for your social media input, but I think everyone has sort of the same sentiments in that our teachers need more. They give a lot. Some we can't even put a dollar sign to, because sometimes they go above and beyond. I remember going through the school system myself and remembering what some teachers did, and to know that they could barely feed themselves and their families. It's very difficult. And as Miss Harrison said, all we can do right now is just trust God and hope that, the ministry and the government will try and make things a lot more comfortable for our teachers here in Jamaica, because at the end of the day, it's not just our teachers who are suffering. It is our students. Thank you so much again to Miss Harrison and to Mr. Wright for joining us. Thank you to our sickle cell warrior and our creative Daniellia White, who joined us. Thank you to Tony K. Bromfield, our producer, and Timoy Butler for our technical support. Such a great show, and we will be back again next week, same time, same place, every Tuesday, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. right here for Campus Connection. I am Daniel Blake, sitting in for your regular host Jonathan and Anesta, who I hope for your sake will be back next week. But until then, please enjoy the rest of your day and your week, and see you again next Tuesday.